September 17th, 2016, and it marks exactly 10 years that I've been in Japan. My Japaniversary, if you will. And I have made a list, 10 things that have changed in 10 years, but I could only think of 9 things, so it's 9 things that have changed in 10 years in Japan. Number 1, SoftBank. At that time, it was the #1 carrier for English teachers because it had English support. When you met somebody, you'd always ask them, are you on SoftBank? Because they had SoftBank plans, like the white plan and the double white plan. You could call people for really cheap or for free before 9 p.m. Of course, nobody calls each other anymore. When I first got to Japan, Skype wasn't a big deal. The way that I would call home was I had this bright yellow Brastel card, and I would get it from the convenience store. You put money on it, you type in a code, then you put in your international number, and it was a pain. I used to have 3 or 4 of them kind of floating around the house, but they've all been thrown away now, and I really see that as a positive change. When I came to Japan in 2006, there were no low-cost options. I went with Thai Airways, which is a fantastic airline. It was very expensive. In 2007, Jetstar opened its route between Australia and Japan, and this dropped the prices dramatically. They've seen a rival come on the scene. JAL has launched its own LCC, Peach. It's also made traveling in Japan so much cheaper. When I first arrived in Japan, I came with a company called GEOS. One of the 4 big eikaiwas, GEOS, Nova, ECC, and I think Berlitz. The community 10 years ago, I feel, is really different from today. When I first moved to Wakayama, there were maybe 20 other foreign English teachers. Most of them were with Nova. It was like a pre-packaged community. And I know the English bubble, the gaijin bubble, is not the greatest when you're trying to learn Japanese, but for somebody who's just come to Japan, having a pretty much pre-made community is so comforting. In 2007, Nova went bankrupt. Foreign teachers were perhaps the last to be affected by the company's troubles, but they were the most vulnerable. People didn't really know what was happening. The salaries just stopped being paid, and people were still going into work. They were trying to figure out, is the company still going to keep going? When will I get paid? So many people just went home. Other people found jobs with different ALT companies like Interac. Some went to GEOS. Initially, there was a sense that Nova was just badly run and its president was corrupt. But 3 years later, GEOS went bankrupt. And I think the bankruptcies of these 2 giants really indicates the change that is going through with English teaching in general in Japan. There's a big push for English in schools, and so you've seen a lot of small ALT companies, assistant language teaching companies, pop up, which hire a group of teachers, put them in a school, and often in quite remote places, because this is more where people are looking to put English dollars. In 2009, the JLPT, the Nihongo Noryoku Shiken, changed its name and became the N-levels test. Not an earth-shattering change, but still a change. The N in the name stands for Nihongo and stands for new. An event in 2011 that really has altered Japan was the March 11th earthquake and tsunami that devastated the North Japan coast. Prefectures Miyagi, Iwate, and Fukushima have been dramatically altered. Communities were obliterated. The tsunami triggered the meltdown at Fukushima, and the region, which was sleepy, best known domestically for peaches and rice production, has now become world famous and synonymous with nuclear disaster. Some of the changes that I really wanted to see in Japan, like a change towards renewable energy instead of nuclear, a change towards media transparency instead of there's nothing wrong here, don't look this way. Those things sadly have not happened. Political engagement in Japan is terribly low. It feels like in an attempt to move on from this disaster, Japan really has forgotten the people who live in Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima, and just wants you to focus on the Olympics. I would love to see more positive change there. This is definitely a much lighter change, but I like it. 2013, Instead of going to Starbucks or McDonald's, you can now go to your local convenience store and get a hot coffee or an iced coffee, and it's 100 yen. 7-Eleven followed this up by offering donuts. I like getting my cheap coffee. Since 2015, we have seen a tourist explosion in Japan. This is because Japan has loosened a lot of regulations for tourists, especially from China. This has led to another explosion in Airbnb. Airbnb increased by 500% in 2015, and it's the new investment boom, I think. This is not necessarily a positive for the people who live in the apartment complexes, and it's causing a lot of debate in Japan because the hotel laws are so strict. Why should people be able to get away with having, you know, a hotel like business but not following any of the same rules? Next year, the Diet will make a decision on this, but until then, I can't really see the Airbnb juggernaut and the tourist explosion slowing down. Alright, my last one, and this is completely subjective and very general. I couldn't put a year on this one. When I first arrived in Japan, it was described to me as a dating hell for Western women because foreign Western men were interested in Japanese girls, and Japanese men were interested in Japanese girls, and foreign women just got left out. When I started dating my husband in 2008, I was one of the few Western women that had a Japanese boyfriend, and people thought it was interesting and asked me questions. I think there's still some cachet, if you could say that, on both sides, because there are very popular channels which I think showcase the Western woman-Japanese relationship to an interested audience. For example, Texan in Tokyo, Rachel and Jin. Also, my husband will sometimes get weird questions from strangers like, where did you meet your foreign wife? Or how can I meet foreign women? A little bit disconcerting. So what do you think of my list? 9 things that have changed in 10 years. If you can think of the 10th thing, or you know, don't stop there, just keep the ball rolling. If you can give me some more ideas on how Japan has changed in whatever period of time you've been living here, I'd love to hear them.